Hello, and welcome to the third colloquium of the year. The dire traffic warnings and warnings about tempests, thunder, lightning, Sturm und Drang. Without further ado, I would like to introduce Ed Robin, who is our co-chair of the colloquium committee. Jim Adler, the other co-chair, is in Vietnam right now. But here is Ed.
Being a day ahead of us, Jim already emailed me to find out how this speaker was. There are a handful of people who have a major impact on Los Angeles and make it the wonderful place that we call home. Through public affairs and private life, Steve Soboroff has had a most remarkable impact on the life of our city. If you want to know about Steve, look around LA. The Harbor, Staples Center, Playa Vista, and Green school campuses are just among the few things where his hand has succeeded in advancing our city greatly. Also, not so well known in the public eye or on his resume, you can look at the young men and women of Jewish Big Sisters and Big Brothers, where he has been a major force, and with the Weingart Foundation, which is one of the major philanthropic foundations in our city. In his spare time, he serves on faculties has served on faculties at Loyola, at UCLA School of Public Affairs, and at USC. I'm pleased to welcome Steve Soboroff.
Can you hear me? Whoops. Thank you. Thanks, Ed. We're going to talk about Los Angeles today. And this is quite a group, because this isn't Los Angeles, this group. Los Angeles is a hugely diverse group. It's a group, the LAUSD school system is a school system where 70% of the children that attend go home to parents that don't speak English as a primary language. 70, not 7. Los Angeles is a city of a different city than it was when I grew up in the San Fernando Valley and when all of you came here. So now we're looking forward to the future. I think our children, our grandchildren, I don't have grandchildren yet, but we have 5 kids, are growing up in a much more difficult environment than we grew up in. The model of cities, the economic model of cities doesn't work anymore. The cities don't bring in as much money as they spend. They have obligations to pay back pensions and union obligations that eat up most of the money that comes in, so there's not enough money left for quality of life services for us, for our libraries, for our sidewalks, for our streets, for our parks. So with those constraints, I celebrate the diversity of Los Angeles and the hardworking people that live here and the future of this city. And I want to talk about a million different issues. So I didn't write any of them down and I didn't do any presentations, but I'm going to list them for you. And then I want you to ask me questions about them, and let's let it go that way. My hope in coming here today is that you don't walk away saying, gee, I really wish I would have asked him this about the police, or this about NFL football, or this about traffic, or this about education, or what he thinks about the political system, or the mayor, or past mayors, or things. Sock it to me. I drove all the way up here, so I want to hear the questions. But the things that are of interest to people now are our economy, jobs, traffic, public education, sports, public safety, it's a big one to me. I'm president of the police, was elected president of our police commission. I just came from a lunch with the chief. Our government and our competitiveness, our industries, our entertainment industry, et cetera, et cetera. The last few, I'll tell you just a little bit about my background. I was born in Chicago, and we moved here when I was 13. I went to Taft High School. My folks were in the retail business, and I went to Taft and went on to college at University of Arizona. I went to 4 high schools. If any of you went to a lot of high schools or had kids that were going to a lot of high schools, that ain't good. And because we moved around a lot. And we came out here, I went to Taft, went on to University of Arizona, came back, and I had studied about shopping centers and retail. And the reason I did is my parents worked in a retail store, and they worked really hard and made a really small amount of money. And their landlord didn't work hard and made a whole lot of money. My folks had a business, they sold linens on Camden Drive. The store was called Shackstead. It was from Chicago. And they would make about, they did about $1 million in sales a year, and they would make, after all the expenses, about $50,000. That's 5% of the sales, and their rent was 5% of the sales. So I saw how hard they worked, and I saw how hard their landlord worked, and I saw how smart they were, and I saw how dumb their landlord was. And I said, you know what, I'm not as smart as them, but I got to go on the other side of this. I want to be on the landlord's side because I want to have a big family and have a lot of kids, and I don't want to work weekends and nights and do those kinds of things. So I had heard of a shopping center developer out here by the name of Joe Eichenbaum and Ben Weingart. And I got a job working for them and learning that business. And it was a great business to be in for a young guy out of college, in that I was dealing with all these really smart people. Because to be a retailer, are any of you in the retail business? Any of you own restaurants or family that have been in the retail business? I thought this was a bunch of smart people. You got to be there you go. You got to be a genius to operate a retail store. You got to understand marketing, merchandising, people, advertising, accounting, all these kinds to make 5% of sales. So I enjoyed that very much, and we started to have kids, and my oldest was 3 years old. We have 5. And when he was 3 years old, I did with him what all of you did with your kids. I took him to the park. We lived in Pacific Palisades, a little house. And I took him to the park, and there was a little Space Needle in the park. And I climbed up there with him, and I cracked the hell out of the top of my head on that Space Needle, and it was rusty, and my head was bleeding. So I went into the park office, and I said, do you have a Band-Aid here? I really hurt myself on this crappy old playground equipment. And they had this big cabinet. It was about the size of this, and I thought that was full of sports equipment. I mean, I was at a park. And he opened it up, and it was almost all first aid equipment. I said, what is going on here? He goes, well, you know, people get hurt here every day. We call the paramedics here twice a week. And I said, well, why don't you get new equipment here? And he goes, well, we're on the list. We're on the list for new playground equipment. It'll be 11 and a half years. So I was reading a book by Donald Trump, can I use salty language in this place? I think he's an asshole, okay? To the point, even then, okay? Even then, I went to the library to check this book out so I wouldn't have to buy the book so he would get a 2-cent royalty, okay? And this book was called The Art of the Deal, and it's the best book on real estate ever written. Better than Zeckendorf, better than any of these books by Trump. That doesn't mean he's an asshole, but it means he wrote a good book. And in that book, there was a chapter on the Woolman skating rink. Everybody's been to New York, the women's skating rink's in Central Park. The women's skating rink was broken for 19 years. It was down. They said it was going to take 15 years to fix, and Donald Trump went in there in his own way and said, I'm going to rebuild this skating rink, and I'm going to do it in 9 months. And he got the right people together, and sure enough, he did. It still means he's not, doesn't mean he's not an asshole. Okay? But he did that. So I figured, well, if that guy can do that in 9 months, I can rebuild this park, not in 18, or in, what would you say, 11 and a half years. I'm going to beat Donald Trump, and I'm going to do this in 60 days, which we did, We got the approvals from the city. We raised the money. We built the park through all the red tape and all the razzmatazz, and the park was cool. And helped a lot in our neighborhood. And the park commissioner then was a guy by the name of Dick Reardon. And I didn't know Dick Reardon, but I knew he was the parks commissioner. And I'd known a little bit about him. And he went on to be elected mayor of Los Angeles, not too long after that. Well, I'd given him $500 because I thought he ran on this thing tough enough to turn LA around or something like LA wasn't. And so I had given him money, but I hadn't met him or anything. So the day after he was inaugurated, my phone rings in the morning, and I pick up the phone, and he says, "This is Dick Reardon." And I, right, this is Santa Claus. I mean, give me a break. The guy's on the front page of the picture. He's in Today's Show and everything. And he says, no, this is Dick Reardon. Are you the guy that fixed that park in 90 days? It was going to take me, Dick Reardon, 11 and a half years. I said, yeah. He goes, well, I need you to help me turn LA around. I'm here, kids, we had 5 kids and 5 dogs, and oh my God. So I said, well, Mayor, what would you like me to do? He goes, I'd like to appoint you to the Harbor Commission. I thought he was going to say Parks Commission, which, come on, let me at it, So I said, well, Mr. Mayor, I have to be honest with you. I know where the Harbor Freeway is, but I'm not sure which way you go on it. I didn't even know we had a harbor. What do you want me there for, He said, you don't understand. He goes, call any of your friends. Call anybody that knows this city and see what I'm offering you, and then call me back. It's a big one, which I did. The harbor is a monster economic engine for Los Angeles. And so I called, and I said, well, what is this guy talking to me about? And they said, no, that's a good one. He's not kidding around. Take it. So he asked me to, so I called him back. I said, okay, but why? He said, well, we've been working on a project there for 17 years that nothing has happened, and I need you to put it together for me. It's called the Alameda Corridor. What is the Alameda Corridor? Well, what happens is all this merchandise comes in on the boats and gets delivered by trucks up into downtown Los Angeles, and on 3 different rail lines that have 200 at-grade crossings that are just screwing up traffic, pollution, the economy, and everything else. And there was a deal on to make one rail line underground, in essence a toll road for cargo. But it involved 3 railroads who had been hating each other since the days of cowboys and Indians, the Santa Fe, the Southern Pacific, and the Union Pacific, and 2 ports who were very competitive to each other, the Port of LA and the Port of Long Beach, and getting them to agree on something. And so he said, I'd like you to see if you can put that together. And as it turns out, all these big shots who were, all the 5 different parties, all acted like a bunch of little kids. And once we got together and sort of understood the psychology of what was going on, if any of your kids or grandkids are going to business school, tell them to take psychology classes while they're going to business school. Because there's always going to be somebody smarter, there's always going to be somebody with faster on the calculator, better on the computer. But when people understand the psychology of why people are doing things, they're advantaged, big advantage. So anyway, we put this project together in 5 months. It was a $2 billion project. And the guy who owned the railroad was the the Southern Pacific, who had the major right-of-way, was Phil Anschutz from Denver. So we got finished with that. The mayor said, boy, that's really great. What you did is really great. So you want to be Parks Commissioner now? He goes, because I'd like you to be mayor after me. This guy's like dropping these things on me that are like, changing my whole life. I'm trying to make a living, And again, I called my friends and said, does he just say this to everybody to get them to work for free for a long time? I said, no. So because I was interested. And I said, well, if you would support me. And he said, well, what other ideas do you have? I said, well, Mayor, I said, you gave me the financial statement of the convention center, and the convention center, which you just spent $500 million remodeling, is losing $50 million a year after you remodeled it. Because there's no conventions coming here, just a bunch of trade shows. Trade shows don't have hotel nights. And so I said, my thinking was that they're about to make a deal to redo the Forum in Inglewood, and my thinking is, let's go to them and try and get them to move the Kings and the Lakers up to downtown. And Reardon's, some guy, well, here's 10 reasons why not to, and here's this and that. And we all have to stop, we all have to keep ourselves from being cynical when young, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed people want to do something. So he said, yeah, that's a great idea. So Phil Anschutz had just bought the Kings, so I called him and said, Phil, I said, I got an idea to give you a better location. And he goes, oh, you will never pull it. It's impossible to pull that off. I said, well, this Alameda Corridor thing had been going on for 17 years. Did you have a lot of service in that? And he's not Jewish, but he understood what I was saying. They said, yeah. I said, well, how much money did you make there? He goes, $300 million. I said, so Phil, stick with me. Let me try this. Let me try this. And it worked. It worked. And the Lakers, and it changed downtown. Changed downtown. It was a big thing for downtown Los Angeles, a very simple real estate transaction. And at the end of it, so now I'm popular. My stock is rising, Stocks go up and down. I'm not saying, because my stock then went down. Now with this little badge on, it's back up. And then when the badge comes off, it'll go back down. Phil, I'm running for mayor then when the Staples Center opened, and Phil sends me over an empty seating chart of Staples Center, empty seating chart, saying, listen, you did something really wonderful for me. I want you to pick 4 seats, any 4 seats, and you can have them for life. I'm so stupid. That was this. I said, Phil, I'm running for mayor. I can't do that. That was a sign from above. Don't run for mayor. What are you doing running for mayor? You're going to lose your ass. You're going to lose a lot of money. You're going to spend all this time. Take it. So I didn't. I met him halfway. I took the seats, but I paid for them. It's okay. Then I can sell half the seats for twice as much as the other. So anyway, I did what you're supposed to do. So as time went on, just like any of our kids, or any of us, positive reinforcement is a motivator. I love working for people who motivate positively. I always told my kids there are only 2 kinds of bosses you're ever going to have. One is going to motivate you positively. Congratulations, way to go. Here's more money, or if they don't have money, here's a bigger title or a nicer business card, or God forbid they say thank you, things like that. And then there's the other kind of boss that says, no matter what you do, hey, don't talk to me about a raise. How can you? This is the worst time for me. Look what you did. You broke a pencil at the office the other day. Don't. And so my advice to my kids has always been, when you're around a negative boss, whatever the job is, just get out. Try and be around people who are positive, people who are blowing wind at your sails instead of blowing wind in the front. So I've been involved in a lot of different things in the city. The last one was I was asked by, so I ran for mayor, as you may know or may not know. And, I lost by 2% to Jim Hahn and Antonio Villaraigosa, who subsequently became mayor, and who both said to me afterwards, after they'd been mayor for a year, boy, do I wish I lost, and would I like to trade places with you. Because when I lost, I told you my stock was very high right at the end. I mean, I was polling to, coming very close to winning this thing. And we're in the room, and there's Time Magazine in there, and CNN, and all the big shots are in there. And then the next poll comes in, the next, what are they called, returns, like the 9 o'clock returns? And I fell to third. They're all out of there so fast, you wouldn't believe it. You wouldn't believe it. So I said to and it was it's depressing. You see, look what happened to Al Gore after, the guy must have gained 85 pounds. And look at Clinton after, when he was out. It's hard. It changes your thinking about things and all kinds of things. And so my goal was, I wanted to look back and say, in 6 months, in 6 months, not in 6 days or 6 hours, I want to look back and say, I'm glad I lost, there was a plan for me, okay? And I'm not one of these really religious guys, I lost, there's a plan for me. I lost, it sucked. Now I want to know in 6 months I'll look back. So that's what I wanted to do. And what happened was I got a call from people in Playa Vista. Playa Vista was a piece of land owned by Howard Hughes, 1,100 acres. That's big. That's just, it's a big area. And he built out near LAX and Marina del Rey, and Howard Hughes built a airport there, and they manufactured there. And Howard Hughes had an idea to turn it into a city. Whatever Howard Hughes wanted, he got. So he got it approved for a city, a big city, 30,000 homes, twice as many square feet of offices as Century City, golf courses, buildings all over the wetlands, all the way down to the ocean and everything else. But Howard Hughes had a problem, and that is that he died. And when his cachet went away, so did the political, the political support for what he was doing. And a councilwoman by the name of Ruth Galanter ran against Playa Vista, against Pat Russell, I think it was, against Pat Russell. And Ruth said, I'm running on an anti-Playa campaign. Ruth Galanter was, I don't know if any of you know this, but like 4 or 5 days before that election, she was attacked, and her neck was slit in an attack. And she won a huge landslide election, not just because of that, but she won. And she came in and opposed Playa and said it's just way too big. And to her credit, but she didn't say it's no, she just said it's too big. And so some new people bought it, and their attitude was, and I'm not saying that their attitude was wrong, okay? These politicians are stupid. The media is biased. The environmentalists are jerks. And the neighbors are idiots, okay? Now, even if all that's true, okay, you can't guide your business like that, okay? So they were paranoid about everything. And so they lost $400 million in that project. Nothing happened because they were right about everything, but they were dead right about everything. So they sold it. McGuire Thomas lost it, and they sold it to Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley and a couple others. A lot of big shots were involved. And they kept on. They had a blacklist against different people in the media who said bad things about the project, and the environmental groups and the politicians and blah, blah. And they were down $400 million. And I lost this election. And they called me and said, are you interested in running Playa Vista? And I didn't know anything about residential real estate, homes and things like that. I knew about shopping centers because that was my business, but I did know about good policy. And so I told him, I said, look, two things. Number one, I need 3 times the amount of money that you're offering. I mean, I hadn't worked in 7 years. I had to catch up. And number two is I have to change your model. Because if I ask you what you're in this for, you're going to tell me it's to make money. And in real estate, the answer is it's called internal rate of return or return on investment. But what I'm going to be in it for is 5 things. I'm going to make traffic work. I'm going to create a great park system. I'm going to create jobs. I'm going to help public education. And I'm going to create housing for all kinds of people. And if those are your goals, you'll make money. But with those goals in mind, I need the politicians. I need the media. I need the neighbors. I want the neighbors to think where they live is better because Playa Vista is there. And I need the mainstream environmental groups. You never need the extremists. Take care of themselves. They self-destruct because they're so extreme. So we'll let them self-destruct. The people that make up stories and do stuff. But I need the mainstream because that's what I am. So if you'll let me do that, and they looked at me like I was crazy. And then they hired me. So the first thing we did is give away all the wetlands instead of trying to build on it. So it changed the C from Playa Vista in people's minds from controversial to cool right away. We got $153 million for that through a bond measure. But and the second thing is we reduced the size. And the third thing is we did some public policy things that were important. We took 10% of the units and sold them to cops, firemen, teachers, and nurses for half price. If that ain't good public policy, I don't know what is. Anybody know what Big Brothers program is? Big Brothers, Big Sisters? It's a mentorship program, okay? We went down to the county courthouse, or the county jail, on Thursdays when they did their releases. And we recruited felons to go into a work program called PV Jobs, where they would be surrounded by, you can't just have one-on-one with a felon. We had 9 union workers to each one of them, And we recruited them out of the slammer to these jobs. And they would have these meetings, and people would come just about this size, and a little, she was a girl, young lady would come up and she goes, anybody in here felons? And they go, oh, shit, I knew this is another, it's going to be another slap in my face. I don't know why I came to, she goes, well, I was, and they hired me. And all of a sudden you see them sit up, and all of a sudden you see them change. Okay, fast forward, in 8 years we had 3,000 go through this program. 3,000. The recidivism rate back to jail in LA County is 70%. A felon gets out of jail, 70% of them go back. The recidivism rate of these 3,000 was 6.8%. 6.8%. That's great public policy. So we hired Ed Schlossberg, Caroline Kennedy's husband, to help create a park system. It's one of the finest park systems in the country. And we took a survey of people and said, tell me, what do you want here? Instead of telling them what they want here and see who buys it. And people said 2 sort of surprising things. We don't want all the units here to look alike. Like in Orange County where one guy did all the roof tile for the whole county, okay? Too bad it wasn't my cousin or something, but so we want a different kind of architectural style. And number 2 is we don't want all the people to look alike either. We want all kinds of people. We want this to be reflective of Los Angeles. And three, they said, is we don't care about backyards, which was really surprising to me, under the condition that there's a park within a 90-second walk of our front door. In other words, if you want to talk about an inefficient use of park space, of land, think about everybody having their own quarter-acre private park. And what people were saying is, I'll live in a condo, I'll live in a townhouse, I'll do that, I'll go from a house to that, but give me stores underneath where I can walk around, services, et cetera, and give me parks nearby. So we did, and people loved it. Today there are 8,000 people living at Playa Vista. 700 are under 3 years old. So we built a school, built a public school. The last phase is being built now. The guys sold it, so I got some money. That's where I got this suit. They sold it and got their $400 million back and $300 million more. So I'm hooked on good public policy, and I am ashamed of businesses that aren't. And I talk to real estate people left and right about trying to do things that not only make their property better, but make the area around them better and make the city better. And that's what we need to do. So, I'm finished with Playa. I was there for 8 years. I still have one more little interest left that's going to be paid, God willing, in December. I liked Garcetti in the election. Everybody's got their reasons. Okay, I voted for him, but I didn't and I made a commercial for him because I still have a little bit of cachet in some of the areas in LA where I polled really well, really strongly, and there were areas that he needed. So I made a commercial for him, and he got elected, and he said, is there anything that you'd like to do for the city, He probably thought I was living at Sunrise or something, I don't know. I'm a different generation, I said, well, Eric, I said, the one thing that comes to my mind is I'm interested, if I was going to do anything, it would be the police. Because the federal government had taken over the police department here. We're into community policing now. Community policing means programs for kids. I'm interested in programs for kids. I was chairman of Big Brothers. I was involved very much with the Space Shuttle Endeavor and bringing the Endeavor here. We had 2.5 million people see it for free the first year. It was really fantastic. I don't know how many of you know Linda Ocean, but she was a big benefactor of that project. And so he said to me, yeah, you can, go ahead. I'm going to put you on the police commission. And subsequently, I was elected president of the police commission, which I'm doing now, which is absolutely the best citizen job in LA and the best job that I've ever had. So I want to open for questions now, and I'm happy to talk to you about law enforcement, the future of LA. I'll give you one little one on law enforcement. Community policing involves the police officers knowing the communities and knowing the gang members. Our crime rate is way down. The crime rate in New York is way down. The crime rate in New York is down because they're beating the living shit out of people, and they're stopping them, bordering even on the other side of infringing on a lot of their rights. So you've got a new mayor now that's going to have a new, and I love Mike Bloomberg. I think that the way they were going about their policing was a little, that's what got us into trouble in the first place. But, so they got a new mayor, and possibly Bill Bratton will become their next chief of police, and they'll be converting into a community policing model. Our guys know the names of the gang members. They know them. And these gang members know the police officers, and they know that certain behavior that they do they won't get arrested, they won't get harassed or anything, but they know where the line is. And if they go above that line, if they take a weapon out in the street, it's above the line. If they, drugs, blah, 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 blah. So our crime rate has gone way down. And our technology has gone way up. For example, the city of LA now is broken into half-acre parcels. Half-acre parcels. That means on my yard, there are 2 parcels. My house is 2 parcels. In those grids of Los Angeles, the last 10 years, every single crime is registered and looked at in about 40 different variables. Who did the crime? What was the result? What were they wearing? Where did they come from? When was the crime? What exactly, how much did they take? What did they do? And they weigh it. If something happened yesterday next door to my house, it's going to come up much, much higher than if something happened 9 years ago. Then they create, for every watch, every roll call, which is 2 a day, they will predict where the crimes in the next 12 hours, based on those computer models, where they're going to be. And they will deploy officers based on the predictions. And it is incredibly efficient, incredibly efficient. The chief now is a genius. The technology is fantastic. One of the things that I'm working on for the department are on-body cameras, where people can have an actual video of exactly what's going on, where if the policeman's doing something wrong or if the public's doing something wrong, they'll have these because the lawyers are making way too much money on he said, she said. He said, she said. So let's open up. Let's open up for questions. On any, how much time? Do we have a little bit of time, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, good. Go ahead. Don't be shy, please. And I promise no more foul language from me.
Could you talk a little bit more about your role as head of the police commission and the things that you think the police department should be working on, like the 3 most important things that you see?
Sure. The police commission by charter is in charge of the police. We have 3. We are the representative of the citizens in overseeing the police department. We have only 3 employees, one of whom is the chief. We don't tell the chief what to do. What we do is tell the chief if he's going to be the one doing it. So we don't micromanage the department. It's an oversight role. So the way I choose to do it is to say, look, I have some really good strengths and some really bad weaknesses. So what can I do, chief, department, to help you do what you need to do based on my strengths? They have some huge issues. There is no money other than for salaries in that department. So if the chief decides during the year that instead of buying 40 police cars, that he only needs 30 and he wants to take the money from the others and use something else for it, he doesn't. It goes back into the general fund. There's no discretionary authority. So the issues that I see are technology, because technology through PredPol, through these kinds of things, changes policing. We're under the microscope nationwide now because of this camera thing that we're working on. Number 2 is, any of you have police officers as kids or grandkids? No? Police officer going in today makes $44,000, gets the finest training in the world in this country. I mean, maybe in the Israeli army they get better training, but I doubt it. They make $44,000. 15 years ago, they made $55,000. How do we recruit people? How do we keep people? What happens? Somebody's in LA and then the Beverly Hills comes and I'll give you $75,000. So I'm concerned about retaining good officers. I'm concerned about succession at the top, succession planning. You've got a great chief, you've got great this, you've got great that, and in selecting the right people to continuing on. I'm concerned that we spend too much money on lawyers and way too much money in settlements. And that's why I think these cameras are going to be such a big deal. If someone stops you and is going to give you a ticket, and you know that you are being taped while he's talking to you, behaviors change. It doesn't just record crime, it changes crime. The other thing is that, which I think is the main thing, instead of the four walls of a jail, if the kids or the gang members are presented with four other options: education, job, programs, opportunities, that you can change the way people behave. So we have a cadets program with 4,000 kids in it. And the reason you're seeing crime going down in Los Angeles is because there are options. So let me tie that to the Dodgers, okay? It's a direct link. I worked there for one day. I was vice chairman, and I have I don't know if any of you followed this, but I'm in the Guinness Book for the highest job in the history of, the highest ranking job in the history of Major League Baseball for the shortest time. I was vice chairman of the Dodgers for one day. But the commissioner of baseball didn't like it. He didn't want it. No, he didn't want it. He wanted McCourt out. I thought McCourt, you know, whatever kind of guy you might think he is or was, I felt that he owned the team and that he wasn't going to lose the team and that the team was worth a lot of money. Nobody else thought it was worth a lot of money. It turned out to be worth a whole lot of money. And I figured instead of criticizing, I'm going to go on the other side and I'm going to try and fix it. And so I made a deal with Frank and all that kind of stuff. Well, the league didn't want that to happen, so they took the Dodgers over the day after I got there. So what happens? Frank sells the team, okay, for $2 billion. Good for Frank, okay? Some people take that money and do great things. Some people take it and do bad things, whatever, okay? So that's nice. All these other owners that never liked Frank now love him because what did he do? The rising tide raised all the boats. The value of every single sports team went way up, way up. Good for them, okay? So who's it hurt? Who's it hurt? Well, all these kids we're talking about that go out in the streets and do all these things that need programs and needs all kinds of things, there's no sports on television for free anymore. None. So it's all on cable, and you have to pay for cable. And you know, to you and even to me, okay, $3 a month, $4 a month, $5 a month, sports. To their families, it's the difference between having and not having. So what happens is now the Dodgers aren't on television anymore, and the Lakers aren't on television anymore. I don't like it. I don't like it. I'm a guy of the masses, not the classes. And I believe that the crime in this economic model in sports is a dangerous one for the have-nots. And when the have-nots and the haves have too much in between, in other words, the middle class, I don't even know if there's a middle class anymore. I don't really think there is one. But that's what causes civil unrest. And so that's my nexus between police and sports. Go ahead. Yeah, in the back. I can hear you. Talk.
Oh, that would be me.
How would you attack the drug problem? How would I attack the drug problem? Well, I have attacked it 5 times because I have 5 kids and none of them use drugs because they're surrounded by a lot of love and a lot of other positive options. The problem is that in this, that these kids are offered all their positive reinforcement in a lot of areas of Los Angeles has a lot of drugs attached to it. So I'm against legalization of marijuana. I mean, I'm all for medical marijuana. My mom died of cancer and all those kinds of things. But I think it leads, I think that it leads to other things and other things and other things. But I would attack it by parental training, by parents being better parents. And I'm not just talking about underserved people being better parents. One of the big issues, I want to switch over to traffic for a second. Okay? One of the big issues with traffic is it gives parents an excuse not to celebrate the diversity of LA with their kids. Oh, come on, the traffic's so horrible. I'm not going over the San Diego freeway tonight. Go to the mall over here in Santa Monica. I don't care. Instead of going to Chinatown or going to the museum or going to this or going to that. So I think that it's really hard to be a good parent now, but I think that parents are too busy and don't spend enough time with kids. I don't believe in quality time with kids. I believe in quantity time. With quantity comes quality. How many times have we been to Disneyland and see the guy with his kid and goes through the line for 2.5 hours, finally gets to the front of the line, the kid looks up at the dad and says, I don't want to go in this thing, it's scary. God damn it, we've been in line for 2.5 hours, you're going on the ride. We got quality time booked here from 2:15 to 2:40 before your karate lesson. Not the way I did it. I'm concerned about parenting skills of the haves in a material world, in a drug world, in a, yeah.
Over here.
I got time, don't worry,
Yeah.
go ahead.
When we went on our retreat, we watched Chinatown.
Yeah, I liked it.
I'm wondering, you like the movie? If you had, going back, this is a what if, but given your experience, if you could go back in time and you were William Mulholland, what would you have done?
Well, I think Mulholland was quite the cool guy, and I think Griffith was quite the cool guy too. I think that we have some huge infrastructure issues here that are never going to be solved. And I can't answer your question, but I can say that behavior has to change because the money to give us what we deserve isn't going to come in our lifetime or our kids' lifetimes. They are never going to fix our sidewalks right. They're never going to, the libraries are never going to have landscaping. The parks are never, they don't have the money and they won't have the money. So what can we do about it? And I think that there's plenty. I think that there's plenty we can do about it. So, you know, it's an easy question because then everybody was white and everybody was middle class and all this kind of stuff, but now it's different. This is the greatest diverse city in the world. It's the 13th largest economy in the world. You know, where did we go wrong? I don't think we did. Yeah.
My point was that LA was built without the infrastructure to support the city that we have now. We just never had the water.
Oh, as far as the water goes?
And if you don't have the water, and you start raising your neighbor's water, where is this eventually going to lead? But I guess what I'm posing is a...
Okay, but first of all, we use 4 times as much water as we need, every single one of us. Maybe you don't, but almost all of us do. So, I mean, a lot of this has to do with conservation and efficiencies, and I mean, we do have some water supply now, but I believe that the infrastructure, when they built that freeway system, that was way ahead of its time. The problem is we're not going to build another one, and we're not going to double deck, and we're not going to, look what it's, you talk about this freeway, people complain about how long it took for this freeway. I think it went really fast when you really consider one thing. Only 2 people worked on the whole goddamn thing. Did you ever see more than 2 people out there at once? I think they're brilliant. You know, so, but you know, the infrastructure isn't going to catch up. So now what we're doing is we're building in relation to where the infrastructure is, which I think is a good thing. This is a horizontal city compared to other cities, and there's a lot more growth that's going to be happening here. And the question is, how are we going to deal with it? Because it isn't coming in at the top. It isn't coming in all educated and all positive. It's coming in all different ways. I don't know what I would have done different. This is a great city. It's a cleaner city than it was when I was in high school here. The smog was 10 times worse than it is now. The traffic's worse. But the city is a greater place to grow up in and celebrate, if that's what you want to do. as far as the environmental aspects of water and, eventually eventually solar is going to start being efficient, and those kinds of things will work. People are going to learn about conservation of water. When they don't, we waste so much.
Could you provide linkage for us? You've told us some really interesting stories. What's the moral here? What is the linkage in your mind between each of these events? And you can turn the microphone off if you want to tell us.
No, it's one thing. The linkage is, are you doing all you can do? I'm not talking about what government can do, because they can't do it. But as each of us, that's what I look at when I get up and say, okay, I'm 65 years old now, and, is there more I can do? And that's what it's going to take. Every single one of us. When I get an extra ticket to a basketball game now, I told my kids when they grew up, we told our kids, we got these tickets to the basketball. I'm not going to give you, I'm not going to start giving you these tickets. What are you, crazy? But you want to take a kid off the Big Brothers or Big Sisters waiting list and go to a game? My kids have taken over 1,500 kids to Staples Center. So it's little things like that. So I think the thing that links all of this together is every one of us and every one of our kids needs to do more, needs to figure out one little thing or one thing that they can do. And it's not hard. It's not hard, because government is not going to save us. The systems are broken. The political systems are broken. The economic models are broken. In the city of Los Angeles, you have a weak mayor system. You have a very strong city council system filled with great people, but a lot of union control because people don't vote. They don't vote. 20% of the people vote. So that, to me, that's the reason for all. I'm not running for anything, which is really great now, so I have a lot of friends at City Hall because I'm not going to displace anybody. Which is an important psychology factor.
Yeah. I'm interested in the movie situation. I hear two stories, that it's going well, and on the other hand, it's going out. So what is the real story on keeping these wonderfully talented people here in LA?
Well, the best from an economic perspective, it's going out. From a convenience perspective, it's going in, because the main artists who can dictate where a movie is made, because 95% of the money goes to 5% of the people, have their families here, and that's been very helpful. That's been very helpful to us in keeping. But other cities are much more aggressive in their taxes and the kinds of things. The entertainment industry is a huge economic engine here. So I think it's a little bit of each. A little bit of each. Yeah.
When are we going to get a football team?
It's a very simple answer.
Yeah?
Yeah. No, I'll tell you. You got 30 guys, 30 or 31 of them. How many teams are there now? Huh? 32 teams. There are 32, so there's 32 owners, okay? They are not going to vote for something that hurts them. As soon as what we want to do in LA doesn't hurt the other teams, they will vote for one. What hurts the other teams? Well, we want a football team here, but we're not going to pay for it. We're not going to subsidize it. Well, that hurts them all, hurts all of them. They're not going to vote for a team coming to LA when they need subsidies in their own deals, because that's what increases their value. Every other city gives them subsidies, and we're not going to do it, because 95% of the people in LA don't care about football. And of the 5% that care, 95% of them don't want to subsidize it. So nobody gives a shit about football. But it's what it means. It's what it means. It's what it, it's like this void for us. If Phil Anschutz wants to have a football team here, all he's got to do is pay for one. And if he pays for one, the value of all those other teams is going to go up. But if Phil or Ed Roski or any of these great friends of mine want to get the best deal and negotiate the best deal and feel like we need to do this and do that and do this and do that with the league, It's going to lower the value. No owner is going to vote for a deal in LA with no subsidy, and then they go in Cincinnati and try and get their own new football stadium, and, well, you voted for, and then Cincinnati will lay into them saying no subsidy. So that's a simple answer. When the 30 owners feel like it's a good thing for them. And you're talking about really rich, really eccentric, really tough cookies.
Getting back,
Yeah.
getting back to water. How many months would it take you talking to the mayor? Getting back to water. How many months would it take you to do the LA River?
You know, just because I got a couple things done, people think I can do all kinds of stuff. That's a, you know, it's wonderful. It's a difficult project. They're making great strides. They're making great financing strides. I think Garcetti is on it. It's his baby, and I think he's got the ability to raise money. I think it is a 10-year project. Parts of it are being done. If I was in charge of it, could it go faster? I don't know. But nobody, democracy is exhausting. Benevolent dictatorship is so cool. At Playa Vista, if I wanted to have a stream going through a place in Playa Vista, I told them where the stream went. Here, you want to have a little water in the ditch, and it's a huge, it's a huge deal. But I think it's something that's I think that's something that in our kids' lifetime is going to be a big plus in Los Angeles. I wish that it could be diverted in a couple places to create some San Antonio-type benefits, Part of our downtown problem is our downtown's in the wrong location, that's a problem. Minor issue. That's why it was so important to have Staples Center down there, because all great downtowns are by water, and ours isn't. We have an industrial downtown.
I've lived in this area since 1967. My wife and I have owned our home, and we are Prop 13'd, which brings up the topic that I'd like to hear you discuss. When I voted for Prop 13, I really didn't do my homework, and I didn't know that it wasn't limited to homeowners. It was limited to all real estate. It wasn't limited, period. I think that we have all undergone a lot of negative effects from Prop 13 because of the fact that the money for schools and such has been very limited. I'd like to know what you think of it.
Well, the reason for money in schools is limited is because they've got 12,000 administrators for 700,000 kids, where the Archdiocese has 13 administrators for 100,000 kids. They waste billions and billions of dollars. That's a whole different issue. If they were to reverse Prop 13 now, there are two things that could really annihilate the economy of the United States. Just one thing from a business perspective, okay, now I'll talk about terrorism and things, is if interest rates jump up again, we're up the creek. Everybody's property value goes down, people go underwater, everybody's home went way down in value. If you change by reversing Prop 13 and all of our taxes go up quadruple, all the values are going to drop, a lot of them are going to drop beneath the mortgages, there's going to be a whole nother rounds of foreclosure. So I say, okay, well, let's just do it on commercial property, okay? Okay. So, let's see. So we do it on just the retail landlords or the industrial landlords, or they pass it on to the tenants. They pass it on to the tenants. So the tenants either leave, fire people, or increase their prices. So I think that Prop 13, our economy's been relatively, other than what happened before, which I'm afraid people have such a short memory, will repeat itself. Because if you go out there now, they're starting to loan some of the same kind of loans that they made before that tanked us in the first place. I think Prop 13 has been a good thing to look back and say, well, I wish it would have just been for me, not the other guys. I don't know. I just hope they leave it. I hope they leave it in place, because we have Prop 13 and we have low utility rates in relation to East Coast, you know. East Coast, the utility, you know, your furnace and your utility rates are much higher, your real estate taxes are higher, and that pushes down your values. You know, the issue, where's our kids going to live, you know? Well, they're going to live in but they're going to live in smaller places. They're not going to live in the kind of houses, in the model that we came up with. And that's what Playa is so interesting. People don't need big square footage. They need high ceilings, but they don't need all the things that we had. Because how are our kids going to afford to live in this community? It's so expensive. I hope Prop 13 stays. Yeah. Anybody, go. Yes. Okay, and then we'll go over there. Go ahead.
If we don't undo or redo our taxation system, because Proposition 13 killed public education in California as we knew it. It really did severe damage, and we're having trouble still improving it. So if we don't have Prop 13, how are we going to improve,
Well, I just don't think,
improve things like schools in California?
okay. Well, first of all, I think that the public education system here is broken in a number of ways other than money, like I said before. Okay, and our demographic is different because people are going into public education. I mean, the parents, 70% of the parents in LA don't even speak English, so the kids, they fall way behind at the very beginning. There's so many things that need to be fixed in addition to money. You know, the question is new revenue lines. And I mean, I come up with new revenue lines. I mean, and in the park system, I believe in commercialization with taste. I'm not worried one iota about naming rights. I mean, I'm not worried about things that we can monetize. The cities are afraid, you know, the cities are afraid of certain kinds of financing or selling things. I mean, I think that there, you know, that there are ways, but as these pensions cycle out, the new employees are not going to get the same kind of benefits that the old employees got because it's breaking the system now. And when you promise somebody something, you've got to deliver on it. But public education has a lot of issues, and it's great in certain, you know, there's certain areas and certain schools, and I'm not just talking about geographically or demographically. It's about the parents, and it's about the people, and it's about the principals. Yeah, next to you.
Question about mass transit, re-education.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
used to have the most extensive trolley system.
Yeah.
As a pre-car.
Yeah. Well, listen, mass transit is the key. It's the future, and the only thing standing in the way of it is us, because we all drove here by ourselves. And so people they're going to be re-educated to using mass transit to survive. The idea that everybody's driving by themselves in a 10-foot by 25-foot piece of metal around them is categorically absurd when you look at great cities with good transportation systems. So I think they've made progress. I used to kid them. I'd say, well, the reason nobody goes on the system is because you build things from nowhere to nowhere, and why is somebody going to go on it? Okay, but now they're going from somewhere to somewhere. They're building things. They're making progress, and I hope that continues, because I think that has to be the future, because the other way doesn't work. Doesn't work, and people don't want to. You know, people are moving in from the suburbs, which all that stuff is very healthy, I think. Yeah, let's go down this side for a while.
What about the Department of Water and Power and their ability?
It's horrible.
I know.
Well, I'd say it's horrible because why should the guy who turns the lights on and off in the auditorium at Water and Power make $85,000 a year when the guy that turns off the water, turns on the lights and everything else at the police make $35,000 a year, just because their union is so strong? And it's really, really hurting the city.
Can they earn any value in delivering fiber optics to the commercial and technology areas of the city?
Yeah, the technology is changing. They have these excuses, though. And the excuse is that technology changes so fast, by the time they ever get anything in, it's already outdated. And so I ran into that with my on-body cameras. So I said to them, well, it took them 18 years to do the in-car cameras. So I said, instead of 18 years, we're going to do that. You know, I gave another speech, 18 months. So we did it in 18 months, and we bought when we bought the cameras, we required that they have a free technology upgrade every 30 months. Free technology upgrade every 30. That was part of the deal. And I think that technology is going to be very, very helpful to LA. And we got a lot. Look, we got a lot of good Silicon Beach people moving down here and doing some good things down here. Elon Musk is one of my favorites. He did PayPal and Tesla and Solar City and the rocket company. And he said to me, I got an idea for the freeway system. He goes, I'm going to build, and this is a guy that has done everything he said he was going to do. He said, I'm going to create an erector set where they can put second levels on freeways modular, very, very fast. And he comes up with these kinds of ideas. So I said, okay, Elon, I got an idea for you. I think this thing where you're talking about sending people to Mars is crazy. Okay, I think it's crazy. What do you want from me? You know, and what he's doing is he's building rockets to compete with Boeing and Lockheed and saving the government huge amounts of money and delivering stuff into space now. But his goal, so I said, why don't you change your goal to sending these rockets in the middle of into the early stages of a hurricane or of a tornado and dissipate, to figure out a way to stop. You can save millions of lives, billions of dollars a year. So he looks at me and goes, takes the dinner napkin, or what's that thing called, a placemat? He takes it, turns it over, and he asks the waiter for a pencil, not a pen, but for a pencil. So he starts writing formulas down. Okay, he's an engineer. So I say, Elon, what do you? He goes. In other words, he's going in the zone. Okay. For 25 minutes during dinner, he's writing these formulas down. And at the end, he looks up at me and says, it's impossible. Turns the thing over, orders his dinner. That's the last I heard of him. This is the guy that invented the electric car, invented the rocket ship, invented solar power. It's just unbelievable. Yeah. Yeah.
I want to ask one thing about the paper I read about
Where in Chicago are you from?
Los Angeles.
No.
Detroit.
Oh, Detroit. Okay. Okay. When you were what?
Yeah, my dad went broke in the Depression, 29. He moved me out here.
You were 1 year old.
Anyway, I was wondering about this.
You must have talked when you were a baby.
6,500 out here in LA area compared to the country that's #1. But is there a way with public or private housing or affordable housing or veterans property across the street here? How do you take care of these guys?
Are you talking about homeless?
Yeah.
Okay, I chair the Weingart Foundation. It's one of our big missions. We give $40 million a year away to underserved. And there's, to make it simple, there's two groups. One is homeless by choice. Maybe three groups. One is people that don't even know they're homeless, the people that have the mental illness. I have a sister who was schizophrenic, which is horrible, that are out in the streets. And then there's another group that is like to work, like to work their way out of it. And it's aggressively attacking each one of those issues. But I don't, the idea that, okay, let's just take the VA, and the VA is for veterans. They're not going to allow anything else. That's been going on and on and on. It'll go on for another 100 years. It isn't going to be a place to. It isn't. So what we try and do is provide services. Provide services. It's an issue. Other cities send homeless people. The Phoenix's idea of taking care of the homeless problem are one-way Greyhound bus tickets to Santa Monica. That's what they do. Take people, stick them on a bus, and give them a ticket. Yep. Go ahead, sir, and then I'll come right back to you. Okay, go ahead. Yes, sir.
We can make that the
Return once more to your Prop 13 discussion.
Huh?
I think the issue is
Why doesn't, well, it doesn't, if the property value is down? Most of the time, the transfer of ownership has a,
No, some of the major deals that were recently discussed
that's true.
have not upgraded the taxes because there is some technicality
Yeah.
that allows them to transfer
Okay. Yeah.
stock instead of real estate
Yeah.
ownership.
Yeah, okay.
I think that is a major problem.
Those are loopholes, and I agree with you. I agree with you. And yeah, you read about some of these, and people hire a lot of our children who are lawyers to figure out a way that they don't have to pay taxes and that they don't have to get their properties, but yeah, that does go around the, it does go around the issue.
Bill just did recently at the Miramar Hotel in Santa
I
Monica
know.
on Christian Avenue.
I know.
And it was in the LA Times recently downtown.
Is Michael Dell,
Of Dell Computer.
I know who he is, I know him,
Sorry.
okay? Is he doing anything wrong if it's legal?
No, but it's a loophole, as the gentleman was
The loophole needs to be fixed. But that, Michael Dell, whether or not you like his project shouldn't be based on whether he's doing something legal or illegal. So those kind of loopholes need to be fixed. There's also, we can also, as we move, we can transfer our base, our low base one time in our lifetime. So that's a good thing. But yeah, that's an obvious one. Yep.
Back to traffic.
Yeah.
The system seems to be all aimed towards downtown as the center, east-west, reaching out to various areas. And living in the West LA area, there is nothing that goes from the San Fernando Valley to West Los Angeles that is being planned.
Well, there never will. I mean, there's not going to be a Reseda Boulevard freeway that'll never there's not going to be another freeway.
No, I'm not talking about freeways, I'm talking about mass transit.
Yeah. Oh, okay. True.
I mean, we've got this.
True. The orange line is very efficient. The red line is, yeah. So eventually there needs to be something. There needs to be something that connects. But there's also some rules. They need to do some things here that don't cost money. We're talking, remember where everybody was saying, well, what can you do if we don't have them? What's wrong, in a lot of cities, they have reversible lanes. There's nothing wrong with reversible lanes. Is it going to speed up traffic? Yes, it is going to speed up traffic. Are some people going to be upset? Yes, they're going to be upset. But it costs hundreds of millions of dollars to add a lane to Olympic and to Pico. But if you had Olympic going one way in the morning and Pico going one way in the afternoon, you're adding 2 lanes in 25 minutes. So there's nothing wrong with, there's nothing wrong, I tried, but I didn't get elected. There's nothing wrong with banning construction during rush hour, but I mean not talking about it, but seriously banning construction during rush hour. There's nothing wrong with on parallel streets. Do you say you live in the valley? Okay, but I mean if they're working on Burbank, they shouldn't be working on Van Owen in the same exact spot at the same time. So there's a lot of common sense coordination things that they need to do, that they need appropriate leadership in. And I think, I got my fingers crossed with Garcetti. I mean, he's gotten rid of a lot of people at DOT, he's gotten rid of people at DWP, and I think that there's some things that they need to do.
Steve,
Yeah.
I want to really thank you.
Yeah. I can take a couple more.
Okay.
Listen, I'm going to hang around a little bit because I like it. But you can leave. I've been walked out on by a lot of very prestigious crowds, so you don't have to worry if you got to leave. But I'll take a couple. I can take a
Let
couple.
me just say informal, we'll be happy to host you as long as you like, but I think you've made us all a little prouder to be Angelinos today.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll take 2 more and then we'll call it a day. If it's only if it's really a burning question. Yeah, 1, 2. This is burning.
With your perspective on the police department, in the case of Dorner, and there was so many letters in the LA Times
Horrible.
that seemed to accuse the police department. What was your response to that?
Listen, when there are 10,000 people who work in the police department, okay, the Dorner thing happened with a couple of people, and it happened in something that had never happened before in an area where communications weren't working. Everything went wrong. Whenever you have 10,000 variables, every once in a while, something can go horribly wrong, and it did. So the question is, why? How do we look at it? Why? How's it not going to happen again? And in these perimeter areas where you've got multi-jurisdictions that can't communicate together, so there are mistakes happen, but that isn't the LAPD.
My question is, and I would agree with you, my question is, it seems that there were many people who wrote into the Los Angeles Times who sympathized more with Dorner than with the police department. I don't know if you followed all the letter exchanges.
Yeah, well, I bet a lot of, yes, but I don't think that that's the masses. I don't think that's the masses. I mean, we have a police department here that our crime rate is down, 60, 70%. We have a department that is very, very proactive and very into the community and doing all kinds of great things now. And I think that, after 9/11, we all started looking at first responders and officers in firemen, officers in a different way. There are heroes, and not just a bunch of losers that are out there doing something. And I'm very proud of the men and women of this department. That doesn't mean that if somebody does something really wrong that the chief isn't going to drop the hammer on them, because he does. The last question was the gentleman right over. Yeah.
The LA Times, they talked about a project in Porter Ranch that was having a lot of controversy about the way it was being developed. I don't know whether you...
I know all about it.
Okay. How would you handle that situation?
What I would do is I would go to the neighbors and the opponents and the political system and the media and create an answer, because you can't develop at people, you can't police at people, you can't public policy at people. You have to do it with them. Even if you don't listen to them, they got to think you're listening to them. And so then you do what you were going to do anyway. But these guys don't even listen. They try. The real estate people are used to seeing. That's the problem with us, is we see something that we want, and all of a sudden it's there in a year or 2 years. It's just unbelievable. Nothing stops us. Nothing gets in the way. And you can't think that way now. You can't think that way. What if the goals of that portion of that project were make traffic better, help the environment, at Playa, we adopted 25 schools around Playa, and we had people, I taught 5th grade reading, we had people doing painting, and all these schools were better because we were there. That we widened streets for 5 miles around. The traffic, if anybody driven out to the airport along Lincoln, it is much better than it was before Playa was there. Much better, wider. The wetlands have been refurbished. So, I mean, the thing is that you want to make it. I would say, I'm going to make this better than today, not worse than today. And help me do it. And I think that can be done. I think that can be done. Yeah. Thanks for coming, everybody. Thank you. Okay.